So you might want some place to jot some ideas down because there will be a bit of coaching involved today because we're going to have a proper taster and deep dive into something called the Altitude course, which is a course that myself and my colleague Steve Foster, who's on this call. Steve, give us a wave. Hello. Steve's just been volunteering at New Wine in the cafe with his wife. So Steve, just take yourself off mute a moment. How are you feeling today? Say a quick hello.
Morning, everyone. Yeah, feeling good today, thank you. New Wine was fantastic. Don't know if anyone's ever been. Quick show of hands, have you been
I
to New
have.
Wine at all? Yeah, yeah, brilliant. So yeah, it was a real treat to serve in the bookshop cafe. And yeah, just be part of a fantastic event. Quite tiring actually, working in a cafe, but it was great. Such a real blessing. So yeah, and great to be with you all this morning. So looking forward to
Thanks,
seeing
Steve.
what's going on.
Yeah, it's great to have you jumping on. Thank you. Some of you have met him before as well when we've done workshops in your teams. So we're going to be diving into data altitude. So it's going to be an opportunity for us to test drive what the altitude course is. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and then we're going to dive into one of the tools, which for some of you, most of you, will be an absolutely new tool, but it will also chime with some of the tools and lenses that we've looked at so far as Bible Society. So if you're coming in today with no knowledge whatsoever of giant tools, then don't worry, it will all be explained for you as we go through. So I'm just going to share my screen. And as I do so, we're going to launch into a tool that we call the communication code. So the sort of idea of this tool is, first of all, to see that there's a problem that we often face when we are communicating with one another. And that is this, that the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. So said George Bernard Shaw. And it's just that sense, isn't it, that actually when we're trying to communicate something, there's no sort of security that the person that we're trying to communicate to has actually heard what we're trying to say. And, we're here in the holidays, and obviously we're with families, we're in and out of work situations, we're probably seeing wider family and friends. And there can often be some of those communication niggles because what we meant to put across hasn't actually been received as we'd meant it to, or we have misreceived something from someone else as well. So I wonder how many of us can just relate to that at the moment and think, yeah, there has been some communication issue. And at work, in the workspace, it's so important, isn't it, that our communication is being received and transmitted in as clear a way as possible. So in communication, perception is reality. My reality is the way that I have perceived somebody else, whether they've meant to or not. We can't read motive, but all we can do is experience of being on the other side of somebody else, whether that's true or not. So how can we improve our communication? How can we really make sure that we understand as clearly what somebody was meaning to put across? Well, the communication code has been developed to help us with this. And I can tell you that this has been an absolute game changer for me and for many others who I've worked with. And the communication code actually splits communication into 5 C's. And I always like to start on the opposite side to where we normally would start. We'd normally read left to right. So I'd like to start from reading right to left. And that's a kind of an awkward, intentional thing to do. And that's kind of important to recognize because in communication, we need to be intentional. So let's start from the right side. Whenever we meet somebody or begin to talk to somebody or come into a meeting where we are encountering others, what's likely is that everybody is going to need either celebration or care or a bit of both. So it's always nice when you meet somebody to check in with them. What do they need from me? So you'll notice on the call today, the first thing we did was we celebrated. We asked people to share something that they had enjoyed or something that had gone well from this slightly different season we've been in. And we heard some really lovely celebrations. So celebration is such a great code. Celebration is where you just enjoy the moment together. You don't rush on to the business of the day. You don't rush straight in to the operational details, but instead you say to someone, how's it going? What's going well? And you take the time to cheer them on and recognize what's been achieved. So when someone says to you, oh, I've just been to Crete, I've just been away, being able to say, oh, that's so good. I'm so glad. What did that look like for you? What were your highlights? What did it feel like? How do you feel now? What did that enable you to do? So actually drawing out the celebration a little bit, not just moving on to the next thing. But when we do that with someone else who has something to celebrate, we connect with them and we actually then allow them to be able to bring their best work to us in the meeting context. So celebration is code one. The next code is care. And care is where somebody may just need us to really hear them on something. They don't want us to jump in and solve. They don't want us to move to strategic insight or to tell them, oh, I remember when I had a similar situation to you and what you're going through. No, care is where we just create a safe space. And often that can mean saying nothing at all, but conveying that we are present and our empathy through our body language and perhaps through our tone. So not trying to solve, but just giving someone the space they need to be able to share what they're going through. And we can communicate care, as I say, either by saying nothing and letting them speak, or sometimes they may be listening out for us to be giving them, some sympathy along the way, or being saying that must have been so hard. It might just be those sorts of comments. Now, in a work context, we've got to be careful that care doesn't take up the whole day and doesn't take up the whole meeting, but that we are able to be present in that care or that celebrate space for at least a few minutes of interaction before we rush into the business of the day. That's the second code. Okay. So just in this moment, I just want you to pause and just give yourself a mark out of 5 for those codes so far. How good are you at these codes? How easily accessible are they to you? So if you're really good at celebrating, you find it easily accessible, it's one of your default codes, then that might be 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5. If actually, I never do that. I rush on to the next thing, then you might want to give yourself 1 or 2 out of 5, celebrate. And then the same for care as well. What will you give yourself out of 5 for care? Some of the voices are really good at care, and some of the voices have to be really intentional about care. So how quickly, how easily do those 2 codes come to you? And you can give yourself a mark out of 5 if you'd like to. You don't have to if you want to just give yourself a general sense of how it is. I'm just paused on those 2 to bring in a Bible verse as well at the start of this day. So what does it say in the Bible that reminds me of these 2 codes so far? It says, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Romans 12:15. Rejoice with those who rejoice, celebrate with those who have something to celebrate. Weep with those who weep. Just stay in that moment of sadness with someone who just needs you to show up for them with empathy and care. So we have good authority that the codes are on the right track as well. Back to the next code. So we're into code 3, clarify code in the middle there. So with clarify, what we're doing here is that we are not assuming that the person who is speaking to us knows exactly what they want to say. We're giving them the dignity of helping them to clarify their thinking, to make it clearer, to check that they understand what they're saying and that I understand what they are trying to convey. So we need to have patience for this as they try to explain. We need to participate in their communication, in their transmission, by helping them, by asking clarifying questions. So we might say, tell me more, for example. Or we might say, and what else? Or we might say, what I'm hearing here, Steve, is X. Is that right? And Steve might say, yes, that's exactly right. But more often than not, Steve might say, actually, Laura, what I was trying to bring across was more this. You're nearly there, but there's a bit more of this. So clarify is a helpful back and forth between 2 people to make sure that communication has been clear and that the perception isn't off grid or off key. So again, just give yourself a mark out of 5. How good are you at clarifying? How naturally does the clarify code come to you? And perhaps if you've done that, just be thinking, what does it feel like when someone clarifies with you, when someone helps you to understand your own thoughts? How does that feel? What a gift that is when people do that for you. That's the third code. Okay. Now we're going to go into the fourth and the fifth. So the fourth code is collaboration. Now, some of us, particularly perhaps if you are a connector type voice, you love teams, you love people, you might love this code. Collaboration is where you ask someone to shape this with them. So you're saying, actually, here's what I'm thinking, but I don't want to just give you this download. It's not complete. I want you to help me to get clarity on this. I want you to help me to move this thing forward. And what do you have to bring? What do you have to add? I've probably got clarity on my place, on my part by now, but I want to hear what you can bring. We build it together. Help me get the best outcome. So you may need to have some collaborative phrases ready for that. So being able to say, what I think you've brought is this, but how about we also bring this piece in as well? What would you feel if we also did this? Or maybe we could have a different way of looking at it. So you can ask for collaboration in a conversation. What I'd really like from you is collaboration here. And you can also have that back and forth with each other. And that just means that the team have collectively come to a decision, whether that's just a one-to-one or whether that's a group. So collaboration is your fourth code. So again, give yourself a mark out of 5. How easily accessible is the collaborate code? How intentional are you in that space? Okay, we'll have questions in a minute, but finally, I'm just going to whiz through the critique code. So critique is probably often the last thing. It's probably the last minute. This is about to go live tomorrow or next week, or I've done as much as I can on this. I've clarified it. I've done some collaboration, but now I need that voice. Now I need that person who is going to tell me why this won't work. Can you see any faults in this? Where is this going to fall down? Ask some difficult questions. Some of the voices, the Guardians in particular, are brilliant at this. If we really want our thing to be the best it can be, we have to give those who ask the difficult questions the opportunity to see how it could still be improved. And if you go through all of these codes and if you incorporate all the voices, you're going to have the best possible outcome to put forward to the group. So again, lastly then, on critique, give yourself a mark out of 5. How willing are you to use critique, either to ask for it yourself or to offer it to others? How immediately accessible do you find that code? Okay, so I'm going to stop the share for now and come back into the room, and I'm just going to see if there are any questions on this tool. Are there any clarifying questions? You can either put them in the chat or you can just take yourself off mute and ask them now. Any questions on the code before we hop into a breakout room? Is that clear? Yeah, Hannah, please go ahead.
So is it a bit like the insights where we can technically do all of them, but our natural is linking to maybe one or t'other, so we have to use more effort to dial some of them up? Is that the same kind of premise?
That's exactly right, Hannah, exactly. So we're looking for what comes most naturally. They would be our default code. And then we're thinking, which one do I have to be intentional about? And some of those we may have learnt to do really well, but it doesn't come naturally. We know it doesn't come naturally. That would be our
Yes.
work on, perhaps. If we've
Thank
already
you.
got that one going, it might be a different one that we might choose to work on. Okay, any other questions? Okay, great. So before I ask the task, while I just do breakout rooms, I'm just going to ask Steve. Steve, come in. Is there anything I've missed on those 5 codes? Is there any direction you would give to the group today on how to just process this?
Yeah, I think you did a really good job on that, and I think Hannah's question was really pertinent there, and I think we can access all of them, but we're going to have preferences in terms of which communication codes or methods we find easiest, and some of them we think I don't really feel that comfortable doing that, but I know I've got to do it. Just exactly the same with the voices. But yeah, I think you went through those really well. I was going to just say that the clarify thing sometimes. I have to remind myself that's a two-way street. So it's people making sure I understand, but also it's my opportunity to ask questions and to get the person on the other side of that maybe to communicate in a slightly different way or ensure they haven't forgotten to communicate everything. And the celebrate one, I think the celebrate and a nice addition to that, I was just thinking on the call, celebrate and connect. And I think you did that really well at the start of the call. It's just to let's celebrate what's been going on, but let's also just catch up and find out what people have been doing, and a really good way a good place to start, but it also could be a great way to finish. But yeah, really, really good.
Oh,
Nothing.
thanks, Steve. Yeah, that's super helpful. And did you notice there how Steve celebrated with me first of all and said I did a good job? Hannah's nodding. That's always nice. Steve always does that. Okay, wonderful. So what we're looking for now is for you to get clear. Look at your list, look at your grading out of 5. Which one default code, you can actually have up to 2 if you like. Which one or two are you really good at? And I want you to say that out loud to the person in your breakout room. I want you to celebrate yourself. Celebrate. I'm quite good at this. Be prepared to do that. And then the second question is, and which one is your work on? Okay. So they're the 2 questions to discuss in your breakout rooms. Is which one am I good at and which one is my work on? And perhaps just start to think, how can I work on this? So I'm going to give you a few minutes with somebody else in the room. Okay, everyone happy? Everyone ready to go? Okay, I'm just going to pause the record.
Want to run the other way? So yes, I think it's my lowest one, my lowest score. So my kind of my preferences are care and celebrate and collaborate. And those are right. Come on, everyone, we got this. We can do it. Come on, you're all gonna be brilliant. All of that I'm great at, but I know that guess what? Not always is everything going to be perfect. And when I see things that are not right or need to be changed or need to be developed or could be tweaked, anything that I think we could get better at that, I have to work really hard. And I think that is where, if you've done the groundwork and built your relationship with the other person by providing care and connecting with them and collaborating and celebrating with them, then any kind of critique that you want to bring or difficult clarifying questions, they're always going to know that those are coming from a place of kind of positivity and peace and wanting to work with them rather than a place of, well, aren't I brilliant and you're doing a rubbish job? And here's a big list of where you've gone wrong.
Brilliant.
So I
Brilliant.
think bringing all the other things in together to make sure that there's a kind of authenticity in your relationship and a real sense of trust being built that actually you are doing an amazing job, but is it okay if I bring some ideas here? Because I think I can help you just make this even more brilliant than it already is. So I tend to lead with that kind of thing.
So good. And I can say that it really increases trust when someone does that with care, tells me, actually, Laura, I think you can improve this in this way. I think I can really trust this person because they're willing to show me. And Kate, when the greens and also the yellows as well, when you bring critique, you do it well. You do it really well because you do it kindly as well. So do please go for that, lean into that intentionality. It's a blessing. Other Kate, would you like to say yours?
Yeah, I had a live situation this morning that Katie Tang and I were talking about. And so basically I said that critique is one of my strongest in terms of offering it, and it's one of my lowest in terms of receiving it. And then the other one that I felt was pretty low was clarify. And so I literally had a situation this morning where there was a message into our Teams chat. My first response was to critique, like, well, this might not work. And then I went in to clarify, but if you might mean this, then this could work. And then what actually turned out was I hadn't read the original message in the first place anyway. So just kind of the tension of rushing and how when you're in like a bit of a trying to quickly shoot through things, you don't necessarily do it right. And that's just reflecting, like if I'd stopped to actually ask my clarify question first, then I wouldn't have even needed to critique at any points. And so that was just a really like literally a live situation that happened this morning, where not taking the time to properly understand led me to do something completely unnecessary.
That's so good, Kate. And it's a reminder, isn't it, about the order of communication code to think, right, do they need care, celebrate first? And then have I clarified or I've offered my offering, my collaboration, or brought the critique. So that's why I really like following it from right to left.
Mm.
Thanks, Kate. Brilliant. Anybody else like to share theirs? Last minute or so.
I love to celebrate. That's always a big thing in my team.
Yes.
I think particularly, so I'm kind of like red yellow, but in my team, there's hardly any yellows in our team, and I kind of sense that I just kind of like really try and dial up my yellow side quite a lot within the context of our team. So I'm kind of always looking out for things to encourage people for, and I just think that people always thrive in a context of positivity. So when you're always kind of complimenting them for things that have gone really well and kind of highlighting to everybody, oh, look at this, like this is fantastic, or people have done a great job. And I think it also helps to set a context when things haven't gone quite so well. That if you've got like a really positive base, then you can be like, okay, this has been brilliant, but actually this, maybe we need to do something about this and have a look at it and kind of how we can improve it. I think that kind of critiquing side can come in nicely as like a second thing to the celebration. But if you don't have a base of celebrating the wins and you're always going for critiquing, actually that's quite a discouraging atmosphere for your team.
Excellent. That's really well put, Larissa. Thank you so much. And I know that, lots of us have kids or we know kids, and in schools they have this phrase, three stars and a wish. So 3 things that have gone well and 1 thing that could improve. I think that's a helpful rule of thumb, 3 and 1. So I like Larissa just highlighting that order. And also, I think, don't forget, we can ask for what code we want. So one of the things that I often do with my husband, James, we're both coaches. So our poor kids get loads of leadership tips all the time. They remind us of them too, which is quite fun. But sometimes if I say to James, right, can I just thrash this thing out with you? He might say, what do you need? Because he knows he's going to jump in with collaboration. He's going to want to add his tuppence worth because he's a wonderful yellow, which is ace. But sometimes actually I say, no, can you do clarify first, please? Or can you celebrate first what's good? I really want to hear what's good first, and then I'm up for the collaboration piece. So being able to, if you can learn this language and if you can share it in your teams and in your friendships as well, then you can learn to know how to ask for what you need. And that is just really, really great and really helpful. There's lots that we can do with this tool. Okay, so I just want to be able to make sure we've got enough time for Q&A. So we're going to move on to thinking a bit more widely about what happens next with the tool. So normally on a call like this, we'd have an hour together and we would do exactly what we've just done. We'd go over the tool and then we'd jump into a breakout room and we'd work out what we want to learn from it. Let's take some learning. And what I would then do next is I would bring you into, on a regular basis, another tool that we use, which is called core. So the core process. And this is where we move from recognizing or identifying our learning to action. So we say, this is the code that I need to work on. So you've all identified what that code is already, which is great. And then we own it. In other words, we say, what am I doing or what am I not doing that is contributing to me not using this code very well or it not happening so well? So I loved we heard from Kate P, where she said, the code for me to work on is clarify, and she owned it. I just rushed ahead without having really read the email properly and then asking the clarifying questions. So Kate, brilliant self-awareness there. So once we've owned it, we've gone, this is my tendency to rush ahead to collaboration and critique rather than stay and clarify. We can then start to lead ourselves to some action, to thinking, what small pattern change can I make here that's going to make a difference? So we think of our response. What's our response going to be? So Kate said her response is to learn to stop and to think and to read before she then responds. Okay, now that's great, but it's too general for it to make any difference yet. Would you agree? It's too general. We need to get really specific about a next step if we're really going to see the kind of change that we'd like to see. So we then move to execute. Now, execute usually for me involves me getting out my calendar, pulling up my Google Calendar and scheduling a time to do something. So, or setting an alarm. So execution is, what exactly am I going to do? When am I going to do it? Who does it involve? How am I going to go about it? So it is the detail. Okay, what's going to make me do this differently? What's going to make me show up differently? So an example, Kate, might be that you think, because I really, really want to be intentional about the Clarify code, I'm going to print out this tool. I'm going to put it on my notice board up above my laptop, and I'm going to circle Clarify. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to have it there, and it will remind me. Okay. Or I'm going to pause. I'm going to schedule time. Oh, I've got that meeting coming up. Okay, and I've asked for that person in my team. I've asked them to give me a summary of what's going well and what's not going so well for their appraisal. So now I'm going to go in and block out the half an hour before that meeting with them. I'm going to block it out, and I'm going to write read through appraisal. I'm going to write read email. I'm going to write prepare for my one-to-one with Neil. I'm going to put preparation time into my diary before those one-to-ones so that I make sure I can read what they've given me, and I've got my clarifying questions ready to go. Do you see? So we come to a specific action before we move on from the issue. So that's your next sort of step now, is just to be thinking, what is one thing I can do to make sure that I can execute a change or execute something differently with regards to the communication code? Is that clear to everybody what to do? So this time I'm going to give you a very short breakout room so that you can come to that decision on what's going to make the change. So popping back in with the person you were with before, can you come up with one actionable, accessible next step? Is that okay? Great. See you soon.
That's good.
Thanks, Steve. Okay so far?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, fun.
Hello, Stuart. Hello.
Hello.
Would you like to share something that's been helpful from today so far, or any questions?
Yeah, well, Melinda and I have just been talking about it, and the thing I want to work on is critique. And I think underlying that, because I try to get to the root of things, is courage. I want to building, courage. And a few of us in the organisation at the moment are going through St. Ignatius's spiritual exercises. And there's an exercise in that kind of process called the particular examen prayer, where twice a day, lunchtime and in the evening, you've selected something that you want to work on, and you take stock of where you are with it, lunchtime and evening. And we spoke about bringing Bible verses into that and bringing prayer into that, and just it's a way also of just keeping it at the forefront of your mind. So for me, that's something I'm going to use.
I love that. An examine is such a helpful exercise, isn't it? Even in the secular world, I've used it with clients as well. Just to be able to just to ask yourself, am I being intentional in this space? How am I doing? And also the celebration, grateful bit piece as well. Thank you, Stuart. Would anyone else like to briefly share their one next step or work on from today's session on the communication code? Anyone we haven't heard from so far?
I'll share something. I was
Thank
going
you,
to
Katie.
say,
Hello.
I was going to say one of the ones that I thought that I naturally have to do in my job, but I wouldn't say I was the best at because I'm quite green, is critique. But I also have a team of very green people. So I thought if there was an intentional thing I could do where I put in time that is a safe space for people to come together to share what they've done, so that people come expecting to get feedback, but it's in a slightly less formal conversational space. So it's not like oh, here's what I've done, I'm just critiquing. It's more of a let's all get together and share. And you kind of come to it knowing that that's the kind of conversation that's going to happen, but it's a nice conversation, maybe.
Yes, really good. So you're getting people's buy-in to receive the critique, but the critique comes in a feedback. You've chosen that word carefully, and I think that is a more palatable word, isn't it? Feedback more than critique. Critique can give some of us the shudders. Some people love it and they're like, rip the plaster off, just tell me. But others of us are a bit like, just go easy. So Katie, I love that you have said, I want to do this, but I want to do this in a way that feels most comfortable to me and my team. So thank you for that. Such a helpful insight. One more next step. Anybody happy to share?
Can I just tag on to something what Katie said there about the critique thing? And I'm the same, Katie. But I think sometimes we confuse critique and think it is criticism, and that critique isn't always going to be criticism. Critique is, let's have an objective view of the whole thing. And some of that critique is, these bits are great and the whole thing's looking fantastic. However, if we look at this particular bit and just tweak that, then the whole thing could fly even more. And I think if you are with a group of similar green people, then you're all going to feel the same, and just be really open with that and say, look, we're all a bit uncomfortable because we think we're going to be criticized, but that's not what we want to do. We want to celebrate where we got to so far, and just be objective and look at it analytically and think, right, how can we make this even better? And I think I had one other thing to say, and I just can't remember what it was. So I'm going to go back on mute, and if it comes to me, I'll come back in.
That's great. Thanks, Steve. I love it. Critique is not criticism.
Right. Could I add to that, Laura, as well, just very briefly,
yes.
Because I think all participants will hopefully know that we would like to tune up the feedback culture within Bible Society. And this is exactly the journey what we have started with the PDRs. We are diving more into feedback, and it is exactly what Steve just said. It is building each other up. It is praising where it's appropriate, but also shedding some light where a person might have a blind spot, and bringing that onto the surface in order to help them to build on what they've already achieved to make it even better. And I think it's really powerful that it's not a criticism. It is raising somebody up and helping them. And it does take courage sometimes to step into that. But I think when we recognize the impact of feedback or critique and how it can be life-changing and transformative, and it should be lightly used, because it's not for every week to give that level of feedback, but it can transform somebody. So that's really powerful. So thank you for reflecting on that. Laura, also, I was hoping that we would give like a practical overview as well. Is it coming now?
That's right now.
I'll hand it back to you then.
Right now, thank you. So this was a taster, so I wanted to make sure that you really felt what it was like to be in the room on Altitude. And that's the kind of format that we will follow on each of the times together. But let me just give you an overview just for a minute or so now, and then we'll come into Q&A on what it looks like. So I'm going to be using the slides that you have also in the calendar invitation for you to look at in a bit more detail. But basically, if you commit to this process, and I hope you do, I just love the faces on this call and the people that are behind them. And I'd love to it already has the makings of a really dynamic group, and anyone else that's thinking about it too. I can't recommend it enough. What you would do is you spend a year working with us, and you'd need to have 30 minutes per week to do some training on your own, and that's self-led. So you'd have membership of a platform, the giant OS platform, and the Altitude courses on there, and all of the sessions are there in a big long list. So there's 51 sessions, one for nearly every week of the year. And when you click on each of the sessions, what you'll see that flips up is a video series. So you watch a video and you look at the tool, you read the information, and then you tick off that you've watched that and read that. And then there's other pages where you absorb the information. So another video, and then a place to write down your insights. So how is this affecting me? And just like I've asked you questions today, the workbook on here online will ask you those questions. So once you've applied it to yourself, you're then starting to think, okay, how do I apply this to my team? That's the X challenge. How can I multiply the effectiveness of this tool, not just for me, but for my team as well, if I'm a team leader? So you'll do that idea, and then always we drop into the takeaways. What's your takeaway? write it down here in your journal. So your core process, what's the next step I'm going to take? And then at the end, there will be a quiz, which just tests whether you have learnt this tool correctly or not. And then you get to celebrate your progress, get to celebrate you've added that one to your toolkit. So you get to do that on your own every single week. So once a week. Obviously, if you were away for a week, you could catch up at a later date. So it's self-led for that part. And then it would be the core group sessions. And the core group sessions happen for 55 minutes to an hour once every fortnight. Okay. And we'll record those calls if for any reason you can't get on the call. So you have self-led in between calls, and then you have coach-led on the call. And in the breakout rooms and between calls, you also have peer-led learning as well, where you can meet up with someone from the team. You become a real team over the course of the year. You're on this journey together. We call it the Sherpa training sometimes, because it's like trying to get up the mountain. You have to go there first before you can take others up. And there's just loads of gains. It equips you with the tools to lead yourself and teams. You feel more equipped. It empowers you to develop talent. So what about in your team? How can you make sure they get to the next level? It builds your confidence and competency, and it strengthens culture throughout the organisation. There's also an optional Bible study guide to run alongside it if you'd like to be doing that in your spare time. You can. And we will also refer to the Bible at regular points. And then you get a CPD approved certificate on completion with 38 hours of credit as well. So that's transferable. That means if you want to think about how you might progress within Bible Society to a new role, this will look great on your CV. But also if you are moving on to something outside of the organisation, it's completely transferable as well. So it's a wonderful investment in you, in your team, and in the whole culture of Bible Society as well. So I want you to be thinking, is this something for you, for me? If you're a green and you're wondering, then the answer is yes. You probably just would put yourself forward. So have a chat with Melinda. And also, is there somebody else? Is there a friend within Bible Society who couldn't make this call that you think this would be great for them too? Then please do recommend it to them. So that's my little whistle-stop tour of what it would look like, what the commitment would look like. Any questions? No question is too silly.
Thank you, Laura. That's really helpful. Before we open it up for questions, I would just like to add a couple of thoughts. So firstly, we have done a pilot within Bible Society, and this is the first year that we are going to start it on the 1st of October. So envisage that it would run on Wednesday morning, the fortnightly meeting. So in our training and development slot. It is possible to review that, but that is our default position. If we have a group and the group wants to change that and it's okay with Laura, we can do that. But I think our first position, our default position, is to offer it on Wednesday mornings, where we already have the slot in our diaries starting on Wednesday, the 1st of October. We also envisage that this would run next year as well. So I know that some of you are on the call because you are thinking about doing it in the future. So I think, as Laura said, this is a significant commitment, both from you and the Bible Society. So the timing has to be right. So it could be that you love the tool, but you know that starting from October for the next 12 months, there could be work and life balance elements in your life that this may not be the best year for you. You can bump it to next year as well. So this meeting today with Laura and this taster is really to give us a good overview, the weight of the commitment, but also the benefit as well, because as an organization, we have decided to move into this culture, this language, to use the tools. And we're going to use that with the leadership team as well in a more compact format, as well as with other managers over the next few months, few years. So we want the whole organization to learn these tools and just bring it into a culture. And as we said earlier, building each other up. So I'll hand it back to Laura for the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. That's super helpful. And I hope that feels accessible to everybody with those options as well about timing. Any other questions about what it would look like to do the course? What would hold you back? I'd love to hear what are the frictions that might stop you from doing it. Does that mean everybody's in? Yes, Rachel.
We are going to give people to think about it. So what we have in mind is obviously we're going to send a follow-up email, and others who are interested in or not on this call today, which is why we're recording it. But we very much would like to hear from all of you, which will be in the follow-up email probably in the next 3 weeks. So around the 27th of August, we are going to ask everybody for a decision. Yes, for this year, or no for this year, but yes for the following year, or no, this is not for me. So we would like to have an overview by the 27th of August from each participant. And then, which means that by the very end of August, very early September, Laura will know the participants for this year, and that still gives us plenty of time to set things up for the 1st of October start date. So that is what we have been thinking. Some of the people are on holiday, so we want to give a generous timeline in August to discuss. And we will also ask you, obviously, to have a conversation with your line manager. As we said, this is going to require some time for you to do the weekly studies and the fortnightly meetings and to meet up with your body. So your line manager knows that you're here today because we have let them know. But if you're thinking about doing it this year, we also ask that you check in with them and get their kind of full support. So it is well set up for a successful year of deep diving into self-awareness and leadership tools.
Yes, that's excellent. Thank you. That's so good to have the timeline and to have this taster. And actually, in between, if there's any other questions, feel free to pass them on to Melinda, and she can pass them on to me. We just want to make this as accessible as possible. But yeah, Steve, you've done Altitude course before. Any last word, very briefly, on?
Yeah, I've led it. I've led Altitude groups, but also I've been in a similar group. We didn't call it Altitude back when I did it, but the similar format. But we met as a group every 2 weeks and went through the tools in the same way. And I can honestly say that it was transformational. And I think the key thing is sticking at it and doing it regularly. I think probably all of us at some points have been on a course and it's brilliant, and then you go back to work and you gradually kind of forget what it was all about, and it doesn't have any long-term impact. Whereas this, because it is regular, it really feeds into that long-term transformation. So yeah, I would thoroughly recommend it, folks.
Thanks so much, Steve. So we'll formally end the call now. Lots of you will have other things to jump onto, but I don't have to rush off. So if anyone does want to just hang back to ask a question in a slightly less busy group, then please do. Otherwise, so lovely to see so many familiar faces. Do enjoy the rest of your summer, and I hopefully will see at least some of you on the 1st of October for that start date very soon. And if not, we'll see you soon in another context. Okay, so I'll say goodbye now.
Thank you.
Anyone that needs to jump
Thank
off?
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.